Alright, but guys, I didn't get to do my podcast like I wanted to inside. Way too noisy. Got involved in a conversation with some guys. We started talking about the FDA and what's going on and how Kennedy's planning on getting rid of the FDA. So a lot of subjects came up during our conversation. Some really good, information that came out, like different opinions and stuff like that. It was a really great talk. One of the things that we talked about was, you guys should look this up. Lindsey Graham came out and was talking about Ukraine war with Russia and why we're throwing ourselves into it 100% strong and trying to give them all the money that they can to beat this war. And it's not over territory as like you think it is, or like it's Ukraine is sitting on multiple billions of dollars in minerals. So it's one of the reasons why they're doing it. It's not, like I said, they're not doing it to take over the territory like everybody's trying to make it sound like Putin's just trying to get Russia back or whatever it is. There's a struggle because they want the land for the mineral rights, and that's what it's all about. And they don't give a shit if they're going to displace 100,000 people or whatever the hell it is, how many people they're going to displace. They don't give a shit. They're going to just do it. So now we know why it's so important to them that they keep this war going with Ukraine and hope Ukraine wins. But I think Ukraine is going to turn around and stab us in the back, and they're just going to get everything possibly can, and then they're going to say, up yours. Because this war is, like everybody thinks this war just opened up and started. It didn't. This has been going on for a long time. There's other things involved. But I'm going to cut out for a few minutes. I got something to do. But I'll be back, and we're going to go up to round 2 on this subject, with Putin and the war. All right, so I'll catch you in a little bit.
This weekend finally told the truth and admitted the real reason we are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and training and weapons. Listen.
Either we're going to help Ukraine or we're not. It's now time to give them the F-16s, let them fly the planes, long-range artillery to hit targets inside of Russia. They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal, how Ukraine ends. Let's help them win a war we can't afford to lose. Let's find a solution to this war. But they're sitting on a gold mine to give Putin $10 or $12 trillion of critical minerals that he will share with China is ridiculous.
So, of course, it's not about the Ukrainian people at all. It never was about the Ukrainian people. It's about $10 trillion of resources. We don't care about the Ukrainians. It's about the minerals. It's about the resources that we plan to plunder and steal from them, of course. And Russia is getting in the way to our strategic plans there. So why are they playing with potential nuclear war over minerals and resources? Our next guest is holding a special emergency press conference this week in Washington, D.C. It's called "The Danger of Nuclear War is Real and It Must Be Stopped." That is former...
In 1990, February 9th, 1990, James Baker III, our Secretary of State, said to Mikhail Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch eastward if you agree to German unification, basically ending World War II. And Gorbachev said, that's very important. Yes, NATO doesn't move, and we agree to German unification. The U.S. then cheated on this, already starting in 1994, when Clinton signed off on basically a plan to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is when the so-called neocons took power, and Clinton was the first agent of this. And the expansion of NATO started in 1999 with Poland, Hungary, and Czech Republic. At that point, Russia didn't much care. There was no border other than with the Königsberg, but other than that, there was no direct threat. Then the U.S. led the bombing of Serbia in 1999. That was bad, by the way, because that was the use of NATO to bomb a European capital, Belgrade, 78 straight days to break the country apart. The Russians didn't like that very much. But Putin became president, they swallowed it, they complained, but even Putin started out pro-European, pro-American, actually asked maybe we should join NATO when there was still the idea of some kind of mutually respectful relationship. Then 9/11 came, then came Afghanistan, and the Russians said, yeah, we'll support you, we understand, to root out terror. But then came two other decisive actions. In 2002, the United States unilaterally walked out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. This was probably the most decisive event, never discussed in this context. But what it did was trigger the U.S. putting in missile systems in Eastern Europe that Russia views as a dire, direct threat. In 2004-05, we engaged in a soft regime change operation in Ukraine. But in 2009, Yanukovych won the election and he became president, and in 2010 on the basis of neutrality for Ukraine. That calmed things down because the U.S. was pushing NATO, but the people of Ukraine on the opinion polls didn't even want to be in NATO. They knew that the country is divided between ethnic Ukrainian, ethnic Russian. What do we want with this? We want to stay away from your problems. So in February 22nd, 2014, the United States participated actively in the overthrow of Yanukovych. A typical U.S. regime change operation, have no doubt about it. And the Russians did us a favor. They intercepted a really ugly call between Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now, between her and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Piot, who's a senior State Department official till today. And they talked about regime change. They said, who's going to be the next government? All of this is to say, the U.S. then said, okay, now NATO's really going to enlarge. And Putin kept saying, stop. You promised no NATO enlargement. It's been, by the way, I forgot to mention, in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, 7 more countries in the not 1 inch eastward. And then, okay, it's a long story, but the U.S. kept rejecting the basic idea, don't expand NATO to Russia's border in a context where we're putting in goddamn missile systems. After breaking a treaty, 2019, we walked out of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Treaty. On December 15th, 2021, Putin put on the table a draft Russia-U.S. security agreement. You can find it online. The basis of it is no NATO enlargement. I called the White House that next week after that, begging them, take the negotiations. Putin's offered something, avoid this war. Oh, Jeff, there's not going to be a war. Announce that NATO's not going to enlarge. Oh, don't worry, NATO's not going to enlarge. I said, oh, you're going to have a war over something that's not going to happen? Why don't you announce it? And he said, no, our policy is an open door. This is Jake Sullivan. Our policy is an open door policy. Open door for NATO enlargement. That is under the category of bullshit, by the way. You don't have your right to put your military bases anywhere you want and expect peace in this world. They turned down the negotiations. Then the special military operation started, and 5 days later, Zelensky says, okay, neutrality. And then the United States and Britain said, no way. You guys fight on. We got your back. We don't have your front. You're all going to die. But we got your back. as we kept pushing them into the front lines. That's 600,000 deaths now of Ukrainians since Boris Johnson flew to Kyiv to tell them to be brave. This is not an attack.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks. Now, Lindsey Graham just exposed the fact why we are so concerned about Ukraine and why we are giving them so much money and so much equipment to do what they need to do. And the reason is they are enriched in minerals. So if they keep their territory and they can stop, doing stuff with, excavation and pulling the materials, out of the ground, then they can actually become a very, very rich and powerful country. Now, the only downside to that is greed. And that's what I'm looking at right now, because this guy knows it, and I know Putin knows it, and we know it. So now it's going to be, in my opinion, who has the bigger wallet. So, and right now it's the United States has the biggest wallet, and we're proving it. So does that mean that they will change their mind and still go with Mother Russia, or stay with the United States? Now, you already know that the guy that's over there in Ukraine is greedy, and he's also dirty. So, and that goes back to Biden, because we already know it. The quid pro quo. Son of a bitch, he was fired, but Galinsky is very, very crooked, and he wants money, and that's all he cares about, and he wants the money to do what he's doing. But what he's doing, if you see what he's doing, a percentage of the money goes to the country, the rest of it's going to him. He's buying stuff for himself. He's making himself rich off of our money instead of them. And we're dumb, because the Biden administration just keeps handing him money, knowing that he's doing this shit. He's buying yachts and houses and all this other stuff, and they just keep giving him money. So, that's going to make for a very nasty, nasty civil war inside the Ukraine. Because, let's face it, the Ukraine, at one point in time, was Russia. And some of the Ukraine want to go back to being under Russia, and some don't. So there's your civil war issue right there. It's going to be like the North versus the South in America. It was in America. See who comes out on top. So we're going to be supplying them with, F-15s or F-18s or whatever it is that we're going to give them, tanks, missiles, equipment. Who's to say that they won't turn around and use that against us? Right? It's not, uncommon. It's happened before, it'll happen again. If you give your enemy the same amount of equipment, same type of equipment that we have, we're going to be fighting them with our own equipment. Makes sense? Just like Afghanistan. You gave all them son of a bitches our rifles. So we're fighting against them with our equipment. And they're wearing the uniforms. So it's like, okay, if it wasn't for their heads, their scarves, and their beards and stuff like that, you would almost not know who they are. So anyway, that is what it is. So it just goes to show you what's going on. So we really have a really screwed up thing going on here, because 1990, when the United States Senate was dealing with Gorbachev, they told Gorbachev that NATO will not expand not 1 inch into his territory. Come 1994, Bill Clinton decides that he's going to expand it, NATO. He wants it expanded all the way out to the border of the Ukraine. Now, Putin really didn't care because there was no border at the time, but now there's a problem. So he bit his tongue and he's like, well, maybe I'll join the, NATO, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, all this other stuff, which, I don't know. I guess they didn't let him come in because they're communists or whatever. I don't, whatever reason it happened, it happened. So, 99 rolls along and it's more stuff. Now he's really pissed because they just keep lying to him and they keep advancing. So then you got, next it's 9/11. Then after that you got, Afghanistan. Well, first you got Kuwait, then you got Afghanistan. So it's just snowballing. But this actually has been going back since 1990. It didn't just happen. This is not new. We started this stuff. And, they're admitting to it. So it's like everything I'm saying is not a conspiracy theory. These are facts that I'm getting right from the horse's mouth, the United States government. They're saying it. This is what they did. So here it is. So I kind of went a little deep on this one with time. But don't forget, I always encourage you guys to look it up. My interpretation might be a little bit different because I'm trying to do this, without having anything to read from, I don't have any notes with me or anything like that. So it's kind of like I have to remember this stuff. But eventually I will have a place where I can, I'm working on it. That's another thing I'm working on. So I'll have a place to actually sit and do my podcasts. So I don't have to do it in a noisy place like that, or I don't have to do it in my truck as I drive to, from one place to the other. But it'll get better, I promise you. Just make sure you guys catch my Pledge Allegiance to the flag in the morning. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Listen to some of the stuff. I also do do-it-yourself videos, only because I have all these projects going on, and maybe some guys have, same projects they're going to look at, and they're like, okay, how I go about doing this. I got like 3 or 4 projects in the burner. I know, right? Trying to keep my wife happy. Happy wife, happy life, right? So that's it for me, guys. Peace out. I love you. I'll catch you later. Hit the like button. Subscribe. I appreciate it.